3 billion. That's not a typo. 3 billion user accounts were compromised in a single breach. Every single Yahoo account that existed in 2013 was stolen. If you had an email address ending in yahoo.com, at ymail.com, or at rocketmail.com back then, your data was taken. And here's the kicker. Yahoo didn't even know it had happened for 3 years. This isn't just another data breach story. This is a masterclass in how sophisticated attackers can infiltrate a tech giant, steal literally everything, and vanish without a trace. It's also a cautionary tale about what happens when security takes a back seat to business priorities. Let me paint you a picture of Yahoo in 2013. This wasn't some struggling startup. Yahoo was still an internet titan with over 800 million active users. They operated one of the world's largest email services, had massive web properties, and were processing billions of dollars in revenue. But behind the scenes, Yahoo was in turmoil. CEO changes, failed acquisitions, declining market share to Google and Facebook. The company was so focused on staying relevant that security became an afterthought. Former employees would later describe a culture where security teams were understaffed, underfunded, and their warnings often ignored. August 2013. That's when the attackers struck. But this wasn't some smash-and-grab operation. The hackers used forged cookies, essentially digital passes that let websites remember you're logged in. But these weren't ordinary session cookies that expire. These were specially crafted cookies that could grant access to any Yahoo account without needing a password. Think about that for a second. The attackers had figured out how to forge Yahoo's authentication system itself. It's like having a master key that opens every door in a building, except this building had 3 billion rooms. The technical sophistication here is staggering. To forge these cookies, the attackers needed access to Yahoo's proprietary source code. They needed to understand the cryptographic mechanisms Yahoo used for authentication. This wasn't script kiddies with downloaded tools. This was nation-state level capability. Security researchers would later determine the attackers had been inside Yahoo's network for months, possibly years, conducting reconnaissance. They mapped out the entire infrastructure, identified where user data was stored, and carefully planned their extraction methods. Here's where the story gets even more disturbing. The breach wasn't just about stealing current data. The attackers grabbed everything: names, email addresses, phone numbers, dates of birth, hashed passwords, and in some cases, encrypted or unencrypted security questions and answers. But they also stole something potentially more valuable: the ability to access accounts in the future. Those forged cookies meant they could come back anytime and access any account they wanted. Users changing their passwords wouldn't matter. Two-factor authentication wouldn't stop them. They had bypassed the entire authentication system. Yahoo's security team actually detected suspicious activity in late 2014. They found evidence that someone had stolen user data, but they vastly underestimated the scope. Initial investigations suggested maybe a few million accounts were affected. The full truth wouldn't emerge for years. The company implemented some security measures. They invalidated forged cookies they could identify, forced password resets for affected accounts, but it was like putting a Band-Aid on a severed artery. The damage was already catastrophic. They just didn't know it yet. Fast forward to 2016. Yahoo is in the middle of being acquired by Verizon for $4.8 billion when they drop a bombshell. They'd discovered a breach from 2014, affecting 500 million accounts. The tech world was shocked. 500 million accounts? That was unprecedented at the time. But while dealing with that disclosure, Yahoo's security team made another discovery. There had been another separate breach in 2013. Initially, they announced this affected 1 billion accounts. The stock market reacted predictably. Yahoo's value plummeted, and Verizon threatened to walk away from the acquisition. The investigation into the 2013 breach revealed something that should terrify anyone who works in cybersecurity. The attackers had been so careful, so methodical, that much of their activity was virtually invisible. They used legitimate tools, moved slowly to avoid detection, and carefully covered their tracks. They also discovered the attackers had stolen Yahoo's source code, the actual programming that ran their services. This gave the hackers unprecedented insight into Yahoo's systems, potentially allowing them to find new vulnerabilities or understand exactly how to exploit existing ones. Then came October 2017, and the final revelation that shocked even seasoned security professionals. After Verizon completed its acquisition and brought in forensic experts for a comprehensive investigation, they discovered the truth. It wasn't 1 billion accounts that were compromised in 2013. It was all of them. Every single Yahoo account that existed. All 3 billion. The revision from 1 billion to 3 billion wasn't just a matter of better counting. It revealed that Yahoo's original investigation had missed 2/3 of the breach. 2/3! That's a catastrophic failure in incident response and forensic investigation. Let's talk about the attackers for a moment. The U.S. Department of Justice would eventually indict 4 men for the breach: 2 Russian FSB intelligence officers and 2 criminal hackers. This wasn't cybercrime as usual. This was Russian intelligence officers directing criminal hackers to steal data on a massive scale. The indictment revealed fascinating details. The FSB officers were using the stolen Yahoo data to spy on Russian journalists, U.S. government officials, and business executives. But they also let their criminal associates profit from the breach, stealing credit card information, conducting spam campaigns, redirecting search traffic for profit. The hybrid nature of this operation, part espionage, part cybercrime, represents a new model of state-sponsored hacking. Intelligence agencies partnering with criminals, sharing tools and access, blurring the lines between national security operations and profit-motivated crime. One of the criminal hackers, Karim Baratov, was actually arrested in Canada and extradited to the US. He pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 5 years in prison. The Russian FSB officers, protected by their government, remain at large. The technical postmortem revealed multiple security failures that enabled this breach. Yahoo was using MD5 to hash some passwords, a cryptographic algorithm that had been considered broken since the 1990s. Security questions and answers were stored in clear text or with weak encryption. But the most damaging failure was architectural. Yahoo's user database wasn't properly segmented. Once the attackers gained access, they could move laterally through the network and access everything. There were no effective barriers, no compartmentalization that could have limited the damage. The human impact of this breach is difficult to quantify. 3 billion people had their personal information stolen. That data has been circulating on the dark web ever since, fueling identity theft, targeted phishing campaigns, and credential stuffing attacks against other services. Security researchers have found the Yahoo data combined with breaches from other services to create comprehensive profiles of individuals. Your Yahoo password from 2013 might have been the same one you used for banking, social media, or work accounts. The ripple effects continue to this day. The financial impact on Yahoo was severe, but perhaps not as catastrophic as you might expect. Verizon knocked $350 million off the purchase price, a discount, but they still went through with the $4.4 billion acquisition. Yahoo agreed to pay $117.5 million to settle a class action lawsuit, though when divided among 3 billion victims, that's about 4 cents per person. But the reputational damage was incalculable. Yahoo, once synonymous with the internet itself, became the punchline for corporate security failures. The brand never recovered. Verizon would eventually sell the Yahoo properties to Apollo Global Management for $5 billion in 2021, barely more than they paid despite years of inflation. The regulatory response was surprisingly muted given the scale. The SEC fined Yahoo $35 million for failing to properly disclose the breach, pocket change for a multi-billion-dollar company. This was 2018, just before GDPR changed the game for data breach penalties in Europe. If this breach happened today under current regulations, the fines could be in the billions. GDPR can impose penalties up to 4% of global annual revenue. California's CCPA and other privacy laws have created real financial consequences for security failures. From a security engineering perspective, the Yahoo breach exposed fundamental problems in how we approach data protection. The concept of assume breach, designing systems with the assumption that attackers will get in, wasn't widely adopted in 2013. Yahoo's architecture assumed their perimeter defenses would hold. Modern zero-trust architectures, where every request is verified regardless of source, might have limited the damage. Proper network segmentation could have prevented total compromise. Better monitoring and logging might have detected the breach years earlier. The breach also highlighted the dangerous longevity of stolen data. Those 3 billion records didn't become worthless after Yahoo forced password resets. The personal information, names, birth dates, security questions, doesn't expire. It's still being used today for identity theft and social engineering attacks. This is why data minimization is so critical. Every piece of information you collect and store is a liability. Yahoo was storing security questions and answers that, in many cases, served no active purpose, but provided attackers with valuable information for compromising other accounts. There's a corporate culture lesson here too. Multiple Yahoo employees have since revealed that security concerns were routinely dismissed or deprioritized. The company was so focused on product development and competing with Google and Facebook that security became an afterthought. One former executive described it perfectly. Yahoo was a company that was losing, and when you're losing, you don't spend money on defense. This mentality that security is a luxury you invest in when times are good is exactly backwards. Security failures can destroy companies precisely when they're most vulnerable. The Yahoo breach fundamentally changed how we think about breach disclosure. The 3-year gap between breach and discovery, followed by multiple revisions of the victim count, demonstrated that companies often don't know the full extent of their compromises. This has led to new standards for incident response, requirements for breach notification timelines, and increased investment in forensic capabilities. Companies now assume that any breach is worse than it initially appears and investigate accordingly. Looking back, the Yahoo breach stands as a watershed moment in cybersecurity history. It proved that even tech giants could be completely compromised. It showed that nation-state actors were targeting private companies at unprecedented scale. And it demonstrated that the data we trust companies to protect can be stolen without anyone knowing for years. Every time you create an online account today, you're trusting that company to protect your data better than Yahoo did. The uncomfortable truth? Many of them probably aren't. The Yahoo breach isn't just history, it's a preview of breaches yet to be discovered. The next time a company emails you about a minor security incident affecting a small number of users, remember Yahoo. It took them 4 years to realize that small number was actually every single user they'd ever had. In cybersecurity, what you don't know absolutely can hurt you, and 3 billion other people.